So I just want you to pick any card from the deck. I don't care where it is.
Alright, I'll take this one.
Now, don't let me see. You can share the camera for yourself. Take that card back. Make sure I can't see.
Right.
Okay. Now, just tap where you want that card to go.
I'll put it right there.
Alright. So, put that card in the deck.
Gotcha.
Now, can you just cut the decks? Take some cards.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put this back on top. Go again. Put that back on top. And now I'm going to find your card.
Alright.
Like me.
Yeah, right, sure.
Of course. Trying to see which one could be your card. Is it the King of Clubs?
Yes. How did you do that?
Well, let me tell you, from far away, it looks like I'm just shuffling the cards. But if you zoom in, when I wanted you to put the card back, I actually saw what this card was. See, it's all just an illusion. The closer you look, and the deeper you dig, the more complex truths you'll find.
Now imagine this little magic trick is your information intake, and these are the magicians.
Job. He had the worst death rate in the world.
And he called them super predators. And he said,
Tammy, what are you talking about? Those are just everyday politicians.
Well, Sam, in today's world, those words could be interchangeable.
I mean, I guess you're right. You know, all the information that we digest has been contorted in one way or another, exhibiting bias.
It emphasizes only one side of the argument and keeps the other side completely concealed. In fact, 85% of all Americans say that they get different reports of so-called basic facts depending on their news source. In order to talk about the problem with misinformation in media, we must first define what role media actually plays in our government.
In our democracy, information is spread through mainstream media, social media, and newspapers, just to name a few. This allows us, the people, to have a check and balance on our government and hold them responsible for each other's actions.
This is how democracy comes to work in a perfect system. Everyone has equal access to the representation of their voice. Everyone has equal access to information. Now, that hasn't been exactly true as information has changed and it has been more difficult to spread it efficiently and effectively in a manner that's true and deciding what honest truth is.
After the last 5 years, especially with the president who used social media as a weapon, in many ways, that platform to weaponize against us. Because in the end, it's a business. They're trying to make money. It has been a very frustrating curve to watch since I was an early adopter of how social media in its own right has become an undermining of our democracy because it is the platform of choice for disinformation.
As I was deciding to write the list, around week 10 or 11, when it had 2 million views, I realized, holy cow, this work is super important. We lived in this time where people felt like something wasn't right, but we were being told by the media that this was just another George Bush Republic. It wasn't until really towards the end of his time in office that the media kind of caught up with what the rest of us knew and had a felt sense of. So I think the information presented that way let people know that they weren't imagining it.
And I think it is a true way for constituencies to communicate with their representatives and show what is important to them, especially when you can get behind an issue and put pressure on DC.
Sure, a street magician can fool a few passerbys. However, a popular illusionist on a big stage can have a much bigger impact and influence on their audience. The same goes for politicians.
The bigger the platform, the more people are swayed by their opinion and what they have to say. This is regardless of whether the information that they're projecting is accurate or not.
When Representative Cawthorn was coming, it was the expectation that it was going to just be the usual string of lies, misinformation for 60 minutes, right? And so I thought that if he was to come to our campus, then someone at least must be there to hold him accountable. So I stood up, asked him why he continued to peddle this misinformation, this big lie, to a constituency that's increasingly believing it.
It's that frog coming to boil degree by degree. So you're filling the airwaves with this false information that's hard to discern and everyone's exhausted and you're living in chaos. At the same time, you're removing information, removing the way it becomes accessible, which is net neutrality. And it's all like ingredients in this stew of authoritarianism.
The big lie as it relates to this last election is believed by an overwhelming amount of Republican voters because that's what they heard first from someone they wanted to trust, the President of the United States. And despite efforts to correct it, it's reinforced over and over for them.
Now that we understand how and why misinformation has a negative effect on our democracy, we must talk about what our government is doing to fix it.
Although 64% of Americans agree that misinformation is the leading cause of the negative political climate we have today, there's not much being done to stop it. The FCC, or Federal Communications Commission, is the body responsible for regulating and creating laws regarding misinformation. However, they must be careful not to step on the toes and cross the line of the First Amendment.
To our surprise, no laws have been put in place. Former FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler has touched on this topic.
I think that the government needs to step up and create structures to develop behavioral standards. But I also think that there is a potential technological solution. So why don't we have a system that sets up an alternative where you have what are called open APIs, application programming interfaces, from the data that's going into the algorithm and the data that's coming out of the algorithm, so that you and I or anybody else can build our own algorithm that says what's going on right now. Perhaps just by knowing more, by increasing transparency, we can begin to take a step towards being better informed.
This year, C-SPAN asked us to talk about a policy or program that affects us. After extensive research, though, we found that most of America's problems are rooted in the failure to deliver accurate information.
We were both shocked to find that there was no policy regulating this problem and wanted to emphasize the need for one concerning the plethora of misinformation that plagues our world.
Media plays such an important role in our democratic government. It often gets misused or twisted, undermining citizens' abilities to make informed decisions. This is the exact reason that whether from the FCC or the people they serve, action must be taken.
It is imperative that more laws be put in place so that all citizens can better decide what their future will look like in our democratic society.